Hello and welcome back, all five of you. My name is Pilot Merchant, and what is your family's traditions around this time of year? Of course, I'm not only talking about Christmas, considering how many different types of holidays happen around this time. However, personally, my family does in fact celebrate the good old Xmas. Yep, hot chocolate presents and ugly Christmas sweaters are all the norm for my family. Not talking about this jumper though. This one's quite nice. But I personally think that my favorite tradition that we have is just sitting in the sitting room, eating sweets, and watching Christmas movies after unwrapping gifts. There's just something so nice about being surrounded by people that you love as you pretend that Elf is a good movie. And out of all the films that we've watched from over the years, I think that one truly does stand out more than the others. That's right, Buddy the Elf, you better move out the way, cause you're not the Christmas classic character that you think you are, mister. I honestly really don't have anything against Buddy the Elf, I just find it funny. Of course, we're talking about none other than The Polar Express. The Polar Express is an Oscar-nominated and Grammy-winning movie that's based off of Chris Van Allsburg's, I think that's how you pronunciate his last name, award-winning book with the same name. So just knowing that, you probably can guess that this is going to be a very good movie. But what is this movie about? I can hear that one or two of you that haven't seen it asking. Well, the story follows a boy by the name of Hero Boy. It's a great name. I know. And on the night of Christmas Eve, Hero tries to go to sleep but gets woken up by a train that for some reason is in the middle of his suburban neighborhood. He ends up boarding the train and proceeds to go on a rather dangerous expedition to go see Santa Claus as he gets ready to deliver gifts to kids all over the world. Overall, it turns out to be a quite fun Christmas story that whether or not you've already seen it, I think that you would enjoy. And with that being said, throw on your overcoats and or jumpers because it's time to go on a trip to the North Pole. The film opens up on a quaint shot of a row of houses gently covered in snow as the future version of our protagonist Hero reads a poem to us about him waiting to hear Santa's sleigh bells. Thinking that he hears the bells ringing, Hero gets out of bed and goes downstairs to investigate, but instead of finding a fat, jolly intruder, he finds the shadows of his sister and his father. Like any rational human being, he automatically responds by running back to his room and spying on the two through his door's keyhole instead of, just saying hello. After the parents say goodnight to his sister, Hero then goes around his house and shows us that he cares way too much about whether or not Santa's real. It's almost like watching somebody try to prove a conspiracy theory. His conspiracy investigation gets cut short, however, when his parents decide to stop by and see how Hero is doing. This then causes him to panic once again, and he immediately jumps into bed as if his parents were likely to beat him if they find him investigating the truth about Santa Claus. After his parents head out, Hero then tries to fall asleep but immediately gets woken up by the entirety of his room shaking. Being naturally curious, Hero runs off to check out whatever is causing his entire room to quake, and in the process he tears a hole in his jacket pocket, which then causes a bunch of marbles to fly out everywhere, thus effectively making me wonder why he even has marbles in his pocket. Paying no mind to the safety hazard, however, Hero continues to run outside and discovers that an entire fucking train has just appeared out of thin air, and for reasons unknown to me, Hero is not at all petrified by the off-rail locomotive and actually decides to move even closer to the train. Before he gets the opportunity to climb aboard, however, the conductor decides to poke his head out and motions for Hero to come over to him. Not seeing any red flags here at all, Hero walks up to the conductor and the two start to talk about why the fuck there's a train in the middle of the road, which the conversation pretty much breaks down to 1. The train is going to the North Pole, and 2. It's here to pick up Hero because he's starting to lose his belief in Santa. Essentially what that means is Santa is running his own locomotive program to pick up kids that stop believing in him in the middle of the night without their parents knowing. That can't be misconstrued, can it? Hero decides to climb aboard, and after taking a moment to watch his neighborhood get further and further away, he goes inside to meet some of the other passengers who are, of course, also all children. After a short scene where Hero meets Girl and Know-It-All, the conductor comes around asking people for tickets. Once he gets over to Hero, the conductor asks him for his ticket, but for obvious reasons, Hero doesn't think that he has one. This is when the conductor does some voodoo magic.
Try your pocket. Try your other pocket.
Genuinely no idea how that got there. But how it got there doesn't really matter though, and after the conductor proceeds to punch the letters B and E into the ticket, he moves on to announce that they are picking up one last kid before they head towards their final destination. Once they get to the kid's house, the conductor does his whole speech again, but instead of the kid deciding to get on the train, he does a smart thing and decides to just stay. Well, never mind then. Hiro, seeing the kid desperately trying to get onto the train, does the only rational thing to do and pulls the emergency brake. This then causes the entire train to come to a literal screeching halt, followed by a very pissed off conductor coming into the cabin to violently yell at the children, but hey, it's okay, because the kid was able to get on. Once the conductor finally stops being a douche for a moment, Girl is able to explain to the conductor that Hiro was simply trying to let the kid onto the train, which for reasons unknown to me makes the conductors have a change of heart about the whole debacle. After the train gets moving again, we are then presented with one of the most popular songs from the film, Hot Chocolate, which, get this, is an entire song about the kids being served hot chocolate. Ah yeah, that storytelling does deserve an Oscar, doesn't it? After the extremely catchy song and dance performance is complete, Girl gets out of her seat to reveal that she secretly saved a cup of hot chocolate for the kid in the back of the train. Before she can head over to the other cabin though, Know-It-All says,
"Yeah, it's a violation of railroad safety regulations for a kid to cross moving cars without a grown-up."
"Oh, but driving a train through a suburban neighborhood is completely fine, I suppose." Just then the conductor walks over and offers to walk her to the other cabin to deliver her warm cup of kid coffee. Everything is going fine and dandy with the delivery until Hiro notices that Girl left her ticket on her seat. Trying to be the kind but dumb protagonist he is, he decides to attempt to walk the ticket over to the other train car and in the process completely loses it. Somehow though, through what I can only seem to explain as divine intervention, the ticket manages to find its way back onto the train, but by the time it gets there, it's too late. The conductor notices that he hasn't punched anything into Girl's ticket yet, and when she goes searching for it, Hiro gets up to confess about him losing it. Because Girl no longer has a ticket though, she's escorted to a different part of the train by the conductor, which according to Know-It-All is because
He's gonna throw her off the train.
obviously he doesn't do that. But if he did, it'd be a very different type of movie, wouldn't it? Hiro, being convinced by Know-It-All's stupidness, goes to pull the e-brake again, but before he can do that, he notices her ticket just chilling in the air vent and goes to grab it. Once he gets a hold of it, he heads off to the back of the train in an effort to track the two down, but finds that they've already made their way onto the roof. I'd also like to say, I have no idea why they decided to take the roof instead of the other train cars. Seems a lot more dangerous to me. Nonetheless, Hiro climbs up onto the top of the train car, but when he gets up there, instead of finding the conductor, he finds a strange homeless man sitting next to a fire playing whatever that is. When Hiro explains to the guy that he's looking for Girl and the conductor, the hobo pretty much ignores that two people have gone completely missing and just tells Hiro that he should put the ticket he has in his shoe. The hobo then spends the next 5 minutes claiming that he's the king of the North Pole before getting up and telling Hiro to follow him. Hiro, however, hesitates because he's convinced himself that this must all be a dream and starts trying to wake himself up. After many scientifically informed methods of waking up, Hiro finally accepts the fact that this is reality, and he does just in time too, because the hobo comes back over to him and tells him that they're going to have to jump from car to car in a moment if they want to make any progress getting to the front of the train. However, while waiting for the train to reach the other side of the incline, some of the snow on top of the car falls off, causing Hiro to come way too close to death for a simple trip to see Santa. The hobo manages to save Hiro in the nick of time, and then they attempt to break the world record for most dangerous ski slope run. They then end the record-shattering run by Hobo disappearing completely and Hiro jumping into a pile of coal that takes him straight into the driver's cab. And in an even odder twist of event, it turns out that the driver of the train is... well, she's not the actual driver, just a substitute, while our two favorite engineers, Smokey and Steamer, are busy trying to change a light bulb. All is going well until Smokey spots what looks to be a crossing point for some sort of animal, and whether his reasons are for preserving his own life or the life of the animals, he tells Girl to stop the train. Hiro and Girl then have a minor spat about which lever is the brake, but they eventually agree to try the one Girl advised, and what do you know, it works out well. The train screeches to a stop, and Smokey then identifies the animal for us. Thanks, Smokey. Immediately after the train stops, the conductor appears out of nowhere and starts yelling at Hiro once again without even considering there may be a good explanation for why the train was stopped. Eventually though, they all go outside to see the truly massive amount of caribou in front of them. Not really knowing what the hell to do in this situation, everyone just kinda sits there for a minute until Hiro almost slips and grabs Steamer's beard to regain his balance. This then causes Steamer to scream and the caribou to respond. The conductor decides to try pulling on Steamer's beard again to see if it was a fluke, but once again the caribou respond. After one last pull on Steamer's poor chin hair, the caribou responds and all start to depart from the tracks. The conductor then calls for the engineers to move forward slowly because it's time to press on. Well, that is until we run into yet another problem, this time with the accelerator having its pin come loose, which causes the train to get stuck at full acceleration. This is only made worse by the fact that the track is about to turn into an almost 180-degree slope, and not to mention the conductor, Girl and Hiro are still on the front of the train. Realizing there's nothing that they're able to do to get anywhere safer, the conductor decides to wrap safety belts around the three in an effort to make sure nobody gets injured. After the downhill roller coaster ride, paired with Smokey and Steamer desperately trying to get the pin for the accelerator back, the train dashes onto a lake of ice and immediately begins to lose all control. Steamer then shows us that this entire time he has been using a pin for his hair that is almost identical to the pin for the accelerator and is only just now deciding to use it. After replacing the accelerator, Smokey immediately pulls the train to a stop as if that's going to end very well. The train once again comes to a screeching halt, but in the process cracks the ice in the lake, forcing them to have to race over the train tracks that allow them to move forward with their journey. After the biggest clutch move I've ever seen is performed by Smokey, the conductor takes the two kids back to their seats, but instead of walking on top of the cars all the way back there, he decides to take them through the other train cars. This then leads to an absolutely nightmarish scene where the three are walking through a car of abandoned toys when the Ghost Hobo guy starts to mess with Hero.
You are just like me, my friend. A screw!
I didn't need to see that. Goodbye. I really do wish that I could just end the movie there, because that did creep me out, but you know, we're only like halfway through, so let's get going. Somehow not pissing himself, Hero manages to find his way back to his seat, but instead of joining the other kids, he goes to the caboose where Girl and Kid are already sat watching the Northern Lights and singing a song about Christmas. Soon after the musical number, the train finally arrives at the North Pole and our friends start to make their way to the center of the town so they can go see Santa. Everyone gets off the train and starts to line up so they can make their way over, but before they head out, Girl notices that Kid hasn't joined the group yet and she runs off to go talk to him. Hero of course follows, but in the process accidentally detaches the train car they're going into, so while they are mid-conversation with Kid, the train car starts rolling down the tracks to God knows where. Eventually the car hits a train stopping thing and somehow nobody gets injured. The all then jump out of the car and Girl claims that she can hear the sound of sleigh bells ringing from a very specific tunnel, though neither Hero or Kid can hear them. They ultimately decide to follow Girl, and on the other side of the tunnel they find a little elf village. They end up making their way through the village and enter a stairwell that leads them into a room where the elves are automatically notified about everything kids do wrong throughout a year and make a judgment about whether or not the kid is naughty or nice. We then get a demonstration of said process, and after that the elves that were working get into a bullet car and make their way downtown. Our trio then follows suit, but somehow manage to end up even more lost than they were in the first place. They decide to start following some arrows on the ground, but at some point the ground starts to move because it turns out they've ridden their bullet train into the heart of a machine that gets the presents ready for delivery. And to make things worse, the first present that they see is for Kid, and him being what, 6 years old, immediately does the stupidest thing possible. This then causes Girl and Hero to follow Kid as they all ride down a massive slide that leads to a drop into the pile of presents Santa has to deliver. A minute or two later, the bag is lifted into the air and is swiftly brought over to Santa's sleigh. Oh, also, for some reason, Know-It-All is in the bag somehow, though I don't really know how he got there. Anyways, though, once the bag finally lands, some elves come over to get the kids out, because obviously they knew that they were in there the entire time. Come on. And once everyone is back to where they need to be, the elves continue to get the sleigh ready, but when they start shaking a long rope of bells, Hero can't help but to notice that he can't hear any of them ringing. Moving on from that though, once everything is finally ready, the big man himself makes his appearance, which causes literally everyone to lose their shit. Suddenly one of the sleigh bells falls away from the tether and lands right next to Hero. He then decides to pick it up and try to ring it, but it's not until he starts to tell the bell that he believes in Santa that he's actually able to hear the ringing. Little did Hero know, however, Santa was paying very close attention to what he was doing, and the big man decides to choose Hero to receive the first gift of Christmas. When Hero is asked what he'd like, however, he'd only request to keep the bell. Santa of course obliges, and after that's all said and done, it's time for Santa to start his one and only 8-hour shift of the year. It's also right about time that the kids all go home, so everyone starts to load back onto the train after the conductor finishes punching a word into their tickets that seems to be rather ambiguous. By the way, I noticed a little detail. When he goes to put the ticket back in his pocket, it completely disappears. Haven't seen anybody talk about that yet, so maybe it's new. Maybe you've all noticed. I have no idea. It's my first time noticing it. Anyways, though, the kids on the train all start pestering Hero to show them the bell he got, but when he goes to grab it from his pocket, he remembers now that there's a hole in that pocket, thus meaning he's completely lost the bell already. After a long train ride home, Hero says goodbye to all his new friends and heads inside to go to bed. The next morning, Hero's sister wakes him up to let him know that Santa has been by, and they head downstairs to sit by the Christmas tree. We then skip forward to after the kids have opened all of the presents. Well, all but one that was left at the very back of the Christmas tree for Hero. Hero then opens up the package and finds nothing other than the bell and a note from Mr. Claus. After sharing it with his sister, his parents then come into the room to try the bell, but when they ring it, they don't hear anything and just assume that it's been broken. We then end the film with future Hero poetically telling us about how his friends and sister eventually stopped hearing the bell, but even though he grows older, he can still hear it since he will always believe. For anyone who doesn't watch my videos already, I tend to rate movies based off of how rewatchable they are to me. And with the Polar Express, I'm very much torn. On one hand, the film is one of the best that I have ever seen, despite the little nitpicks that I've been noting throughout the story. The animation is marvelous given its age, the scripting is rather solid all the way through, and the attention to detail is insane. I mean, just look at the reflection in these people's eyes. Not to mention how I've seen this film every year since I was 5, and not once have I ever noticed his ticket disappearing, because seeing is believing. On the other hand, however, if I ever try to watch this movie any other months but November and December, it just doesn't entertain me. I mean, yes, you'll have the occasional quotable caribou, and this is the Polar Express, but it doesn't entertain me throughout the entire film. It doesn't keep my interest unless I'm in the mood for Christmas stuff, which is only in November and December. So that being said, I'm going to have to rate Polar Express as a 4.5 out of 5. Essentially what that means in this specific case is if you turn on this movie any time of the year that's not in November or December, I'd probably sit down to watch it. I'm not sure how entertained I'd be by it, but if you turn it on in November or December, I'm gonna be watching the absolute shit out of this movie. And that's gonna be it from me today. If you like this video, then like this video. If you want to call me a soy boy or you want to make any suggestions or requests for movies that I should cover in the future, just leave them down in the comments and I should get back to you. And last but not least, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more from me, please consider subscribing. I do upload monthly. It's hard to keep on a very specific schedule at the moment, considering the fact that I work a full-time job. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely holiday, and as always, I hope you have a lovely day. Fuck you. I hope your whole family has a nice Christmas.